The wipeout can come at any time. The bad ones can threaten careers, while others can win awards. And some just leave you with egg on your face. Are all these people crazy or what? That's the burning issue. She's marketable, decorated and famous. But if Lindsey Vonn is so good, how come she crashes so often? There's something that has to be said about Lindsey Vonn up front, and it's not meant to be gender-based or sexist. It's simply this: she seems so nice. As American as apple pie. Happy, positive, with a lovely smile. Good-natured, with a long track record of charitable work. Great with kids. Loves animals. And mascots. An ambassador for her sport. An inspirational role model for young women. And young men, for that matter. The most successful female alpine ski racer in the history of alpine ski racing is also one other thing. She's tough, like really tough.
This is the woman here with the most Super G wins of any woman in history and 59 World Cup wins total.
Vonn over the top, and she is down heavily.
I've crashed many, many times. Just this one tore my knee apart.
That crash at the 2013 World Championships in Austria resulted in tears to her medial and anterior cruciate ligaments and a fractured tibial plateau. That's kind of an important bone in the knee joint, which is crucial to weight bearing and balance. Pretty important when you want to burn down a mountain at 250k an hour. Lindsey was out for 10 months. Just one of a long string of injuries the 2010 Olympic gold medalist has suffered. She worked hard to get back for the 2014 Winter Olympics, but crashed in a training run and did the same knee all over again. In 2015, she fractured an ankle. In early 2016, it was her left knee's turn to suffer multiple hairline fractures. And in late 2016, she broke the humerus bone in her right arm. And there was nothing humorous about it. When she returned, she finished the 2016-17 season with her right ski pole taped to her glove because the feeling in her arm still wasn't right. She's tough, all right, especially seeing she's earned enough and is marketable enough to have retired without putting her body through all the pain and effort. But we do have to ask, if Lindsey Vonn is so good, how come she crashes so often? That burning issue answered after the break. Lindsey Vonn is good at bouncing back because, let's face it, she's had a lot of practice.
There's only so dark a hole you can put yourself in. I'm not doing this again, ever. Ever!
But do it again, she did.
I feel good. My knee's not swollen, didn't hurt at all, I didn't feel anything. Honestly can't tell which knee was injured, so that's a good sign.
The next comeback was from an ankle.
I broke my ankle, but now I'm again the happiest girl in the world. I am back on skis, and today was awesome. I had no pain, I felt great.
And perhaps the toughest injury of all to overcome, a broken arm.
I've dealt with injuries before, and this was just a different hurdle. You know, it was a different beast, and I'm glad that I was able to overcome it. But I'm still struggling. You know, my hand still isn't working the way it should, and but that's just life. You know, you just got to do the best you can with what you have.
Some extreme sports nuts have the arrogance and audacity to suggest that skiing isn't really extreme sport. But when you see all the damage Lindsey Vonn has done to herself, well, it looks pretty extreme to us. But between all the hospital airlifts, plaster casts and tears, there's been a dazzling array of triumphs. Apart from her downhill gold and Super G bronze at the Vancouver Winter Games of 2010, and her 2 gold, 3 silver, and 2 bronze at the World Championships, Vonn owns the record for the most number of World Cup victories by a female skier. She broke the old record of 63 at the start of 2015 and set her sights on the all-time record of 86 World Cup wins by Swedish legend Ingemar Stenmark, who she met after taking her tally to 77 in January 2017. The broken arm she suffered at the start of that season slowed her progress towards the record. Just the 1 win for the season. But considering she couldn't feel the ski pole in her hand, it was pretty special. And under the circumstances, her 7th medal, bronze in the downhill at St. Moritz in the 2017 World Championships, was literally one of her most nerveless performances.
Being on the podium again in downhill at the World Championships was amazing. You know, I've definitely had some struggles with my latest arm surgery and having so many problems with my nerve and my hand. You know, struggling in the Super G because of that. It's just been hard. So to be able to get back on the podium and to get my 7th World Championship medal was amazing.
Sure, she's had some falls, but she keeps getting back up with a champion's will. And that makes her an all-time great. And if you want one last example of her capacity to live life on the edge and keep bouncing back, it was the 2 years she spent dating Tiger Woods. Risky. Snowboarder Shaun White became so good, other athletes were almost forgotten. But does he deserve all the attention? The time has come for us to put snowboarding legend Shaun White under the blowtorch.
Wish me luck, and here we go.
White began as a skateboarding golden child, mentored by the sport's godfather, Tony Hawk, when he was only 9. Having also grown up skiing on the San Bernardino Mountains, he eventually transferred to snowboarding and grew into the sport's most dominant force. Olympic halfpipe champion at Turin and Vancouver, he also has more Winter X Games gold than anyone else. Now north of 30, his stranglehold on the sport has slipped, but he still managed wins at the 2017 US Snowboarding Grand Prix and US Open Snowboarding Championships. White's success comes from an almost zen-like ability to deal with pressure.
The only comfort that really soothes me is that I can't slow down time. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be here and it's gonna be gone, and you know, whatever happens, happens.
But while he's become one of the biggest names in sport, let alone boarding, does he actually deserve all the attention? Shaun has always stood out in a crowd, blessed with a mane of brilliant ginger locks that earned him the nickname, the Flying Tomato. While he actually embraced the term, growing his locks for extra effect in the past, we should note that White isn't such a fan of the name anymore, having cut his hair to look a little more grown up. He's one of the sport's most dynamic innovators too. Get ready for some bonkers names here, by the way. First to land, back-to-back double corks. The first to land a frontside heel flip 540 body varial. And in skateboarding, the first to land a Cab 7 melon grab. Then there's his 4 Winter X Superpipe golds in a row. also something of a renaissance man with entrepreneurial pursuits and minor success with his band, Bad Things. White has been the face of board sports for years, even when you couldn't see his face. In fact, you could almost go so far as to say he became the sport, and this caused issues. In the lead-up to the Sochi Winter Olympics, other competitors were asked if Shaun's dominance was a factor in their preparation.
I'm sorry, who?
Yeah, with Shaun dropping out, it definitely kind of sucked because, I mean, most of the spotlight in snowboarding is on Shaun. But when he dropped out, it's kind of cool because everyone's like, oh, there's these other guys that compete too.
It's interesting, and you know, he's a great snowboarder, but I think at a certain point the media kind of has to let off a little bit and give the other guys a little bit of attention, and you know, maybe give him a little space too, because he's probably not getting much sleep with all that attention.
White was due to compete in a second event, the slopestyle, but pulled out wanting to focus on his beloved halfpipe, in which he ironically came fourth, revealing just how much the rest of the boarding world had a case of tall poppy syndrome. White was slammed for his withdrawal. Canadian Max Parrott took to social media saying, "Shaun knows he won't be able to win the slopes. That's why he pulled out. He's scared." Although Parrott apologized later, his opinion of the champ was clear. It's understandable that these guys were getting sick of the White comparison, but there are many reasons he's always received so much attention. For one, he was instrumental in lifting snowboarding from a pastime for adrenaline junkies to a respected international sport. Prior to defending his Olympic title in 2010, White was on the trail to bring audiences into the boarders' process.
And it really kind of opened the eyes of people and show them what we're doing, and that there's obviously a skill involved and a certain talent you need to have for the sport.
He's also articulate, which is, let's be honest, rare among boarders. Here musing on the sport's expansion into Asia.
I think China has what it takes to be truly influential in the sport, just because they have these fresh eyes, they have this excitement about them. I definitely have great hopes for the sport of snowboarding in China, and I can't wait to see it.
Seriously, compare that to Sage Kotzenberg when he's talking about his gold medal winning performance in Sochi.
Winning a gold on the first day and the first event of slopestyle ever being in the Olympics is seriously the craziest thing ever. You know, I thought about it a little bit, but I never really, I don't know, there's something like I didn't really think it would happen because it was just like too much to take in all at once. But I'm really stoked to just, I can't believe this is all in one day too.
Or his professional assessment of the Sochi venue.
The course was fine, it was sick, I was really down with it. It's definitely a big boy course. It separated the men from the boys for sure, and you could kind of see that. But yeah, the course was awesome. They did a really good job with it.
For his dominance as a competitor, his contribution to lifting a fringe playtime into the spotlight, and his ability to speak English, Shaun White absolutely deserves the attention he's enjoyed over the years. After the break, we take you on a journey into the dark side of surfing to prove the sport is at its best when it's ugly. Not many sports have awards ceremonies for the biggest failure of the year. But in surfing, stuff-ups are celebrated, and the more grandiose, the better. When guys like Willem Banks here go down on a 30-foot Mavericks bomb, they don't get mocked. They get cred as the maddest pill in the room. In fact, Banks won an award for it.
Let's check out the 2017 Tiger Wipeout of the Year. Ba-ba-boom!
Well, sometimes the guys presenting the awards give them a run for their money as the maddest. So why are we so fascinated by watching professionals doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing? Maybe it's because surfing is at its best when it's ugly. A lot of people see surfing as something that should be pretty. And when you watch the sport's greatest ever, Kelly Slater, slide into a barrel like this, do a disappearing act, and then re-emerge like a ghost, you kind of understand.
Oh my gosh, he comes over the foam ball and makes it out of that tube.
In fact, this wave was ridden during the Billabong Pro in Tahiti in 2016. And it was so pretty, it received a perfect 10 from the judges. Slater scored a second perfect 10 on his next wave. Only the 9th time in the sport's history such a feat has been achieved. But maybe it's just a bit too perfect. Like Slater's head, overly symmetrical. Or there's this stuff. Multiple world champion Mick Fanning headed up to Norway in order to surf under the eerie glow of the Northern Lights. And yes, Mick, it's nice. But then check out this ugly beast. Famed big wave spot, Nazaré in Portugal. There is nothing pretty about it, but the awe it inspires makes Mick flapping around in Norway with his fancy lights look like kids' stuff. Or how about world champion John Florence riding the most famous big wave spot in the world, Waimea Bay, windblown and completely oversized. It's so monstrous and ugly, it's beautiful. In fact, taming the conditions earned John the most prestigious big wave honour of becoming Eddie Aikau Invitational Champion. British surfer Andrew Cotton felt compelled to ride a grotesque deep-water Atlantic wave to prove how good surfing can be when it's unsightly. The boat skipper probably summed the place up best.
This area can turn from something as benign and beautiful and calm as this on a day like this into what can only be described as absolute hell.
But the wave that epitomizes just how much better surfing is when it's ugly is this hideous thing, Cape Solander in Sydney. Its nickname, Cape Fear, says it all. It breaks on 2 feet of water, only 20 feet away from a rock face covered in razor-sharp barnacles. And what kind of maniac is inclined to ride this nightmare? Someone like Richie Vachulik is who. Richie is a different breed of surfer, and it's not just mutant slabs of water he's drawn to.
It wasn't until I was about 18 that I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I started competing in that. And it wasn't long after that I showed a bit of interest in mixed martial arts, and when I was about 22 I had my first professional mixed martial arts fight.
Richie progressed from having an interest in MMA to becoming a fighter in the UFC and was on the same card as Ronda Rousey when she lost to Holly Holm in 2015. And his time in the octagon has taught him a few things about dealing with big, ugly waves.
Yeah, I think a bunch of the techniques that I do in the gym and I learn through mixed martial arts apply directly to surfing, surfing in general and especially surfing big waves.
Because let's face it, with a ton of water coming down on your head, it takes more than a pretty face and some fancy sponsorships to survive.
If I can get through, some really hard rounds in the gym, it makes going out surfing a little bit more relaxing sometimes. Even when the waves are big and it's scary, I know that I've pushed myself as hard as I can in the gym, so if, things go a bit pear-shaped in the water, hopefully I can handle them.
So folks can ooh and ah at pretty, perfect waves all they want. But surfing is at its best when it's ugly. There are many ways to get down a mountain, and extreme athletes found most of them. But is there room for another? Extreme sport has already uncovered so many different ways of getting down a mountain. There's mountain biking. There's extreme kayaking. When you've got a bit of sealed road, a skateboard will do the job. There's snowboarding and the original, skiing. Extreme athletes have even turned the once graceful art of ice skating into a testosterone-fueled battle for first to the bottom. And for the really unhinged, there's the most direct route, wingsuiting. So with all these different ways of flying in the face of danger and gravity, do we really need another way of getting down a mountain? Hawaiian professional windsurfer and snowboarding fanatic Levi Sevo seemed to think so. He had the bright idea of blending his two loves by taking a snowboard and sticking a sail on it to create what he calls alpine surfing.
The concept came from sort of an imagination of taking the windsurfing feeling out of its element and bringing it to the mountains and seeing if we could recreate the same sensation in the snow.
At first, it seems unusual that no one had thought of such a simple idea before. But then the question needs to be asked, is there much difference between Levi's way of getting down a mountain and regular snowboarding? Gravity works whether there's wind or not, right? But throughout the development process, he discovered challenges in blending the disciplines.
Using a snowboard is optimal because the snowboard functions in probably the highest performance way on the mountain. But I think we wanted to really explore the feeling and the sensation of windsurfing. So we had to find something in between a snowboard and a windsurf board.
Once the strange hybrid was cobbled together, though, surely having a sail to deal with on top of keeping your balance would be more annoying than exhilarating. And just having an extra piece of equipment to haul up a steep powder-covered slope would make you want to set fire to the thing. But then you hear Levi talk about the sensation once he started to get the skills wired.
What you might need 20, 30 knots of wind in the ocean to go forward. On the mountain, you only need 5 knots because you can go 30 miles an hour really fast. So when you have the drop-in steep and the wind together, the speed is like uncontrollable.
So maybe alpine surfing is different enough, a legit new way of getting down a mountain. And you know what? When you see it done like this, who cares what he's riding? You could watch it all day. They dabble with danger so often, you might call extreme athletes stupid by nature. But after the break, things get really bonkers. Welcome back. In this episode of The Burning Issue, we've seen brave and inspirational athletes who zoom down mountains, fly through the skies with wings, and brave nature in all its ferocity. But they don't have a mortgage on the word extreme. Here's some folk who are extreme athletes, as in extremely stupid. All the old favourites of absurdity are here, like the bog snorkelers, the shin kickers, the food lickers, and the coal carriers. The wife carriers are here too, although the extreme athletes among this lot are the ones being carried. Would you trust these nongs not to drop you on your head? There's people who have lost their marbles, and others who have, no, seriously, lost their marbles. Among the loosely grouped collection of bizarre sports are a few genuinely extreme athletes. Like this race in the desert between former F1 star Martin Brundle and the jetman Yves Rossi, who hit almost 300 kilometers per hour on his powered wings. And guys who fly through buildings. Or dance with death in the bull ring. But our favourite extreme athletes have to be the ones who literally put the eggs in extreme. The annual World Egg Throwing and Egg Russian Roulette Championships began in England as a way to bring normal folk out of their shell. In Egg Russian Roulette, a box of hard-boiled eggs contains one raw egg, and the loser is the one who messes up. And you might think the secret of egg throwing is in the catching, but if you listen to the competitors, the real art is in the throwing.
Yeah, there are different techniques. You'll see underarm. You'll see the cricketers use a very strong overarm. The main thing is to get height so that your catcher can run in. Getting that height is the hardest part.
I think really what makes a great tosser is commitment and dedication and a lot of practice. I've practiced tossing for many years, some intense tossing leading up to this championships,